Good morning. Thank you for joining us here in Carson City, in Las Vegas, or online. We appreciate that. My name is Marilyn Dondero Loop, and I will be chairing the Committee on Senate Finance this morning. And we'll start with roll call.
Senator Buck, Senator Cannizzaro, Senator Neal, Senator Wynn, Senator Stone, Senator Taylor, Senator Titus, Chair Dondero Loop.
And I am here, and please mark Senator Cannizzaro present as she arrives. And with that, reminder to mute your cell phones, etc. Everyone knows the drill by now. And with that, we will begin with Assembly Bill 581. Good morning. And when you are ready, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. Kitty DeSocio, DESOCIO, Deputy Director of Support Services for the Department of Corrections. I'm here to present Assembly Bill 581, which is a supplemental appropriation for the Department of Corrections. Section 1 of the bill hereby appropriated the State General Fund to the Department of Corrections a sum of $2,929,232 for Northern Nevada Correctional Center budget, the shortfall of utilities and personal services. Section 2 appropriated from the State General Fund to the Department of Corrections the sum of $261,455 to Stewart Conservation Camp budget account, anticipated shortfall related to personal services, utilities, and inmate-driven expenses. Section 3, hereby appropriated from the State General Fund to the Department of Corrections in the sum of $250,794 to PH Conservation Camp budget account, an anticipated shortfall of personal services, utilities, and inmate-driven expenses. Hereby appropriated from the State General Fund, Section 4, hereby appropriated from the State General Fund, the Department of Corrections a sum of $222,749 for the Northern Nevada Transitional Housing budget. Anticipated shortfall is for personal services, utilities, and inmate-driven expenses. Hereby, Section 5, hereby appropriated from the State General Fund, the Department of Corrections, the sum of $867,707 for Three Lakes Valley Conservation Camp for the anticipated shortfall of personal services, utilities, and inmate-driven expenses. Section 6, hereby appropriated from the State General Fund to the Department of Corrections, a sum of $5,100,000. Wow, that's a big number. 5,100,000.
I would rather the 5,000, so if you can go there, that would be great.
Let me start over. Section 6, hereby appropriated from the State General Fund, the Department of Corrections, a sum of $5,133,305 for the Southern Desert Correctional Center for anticipated shortfalls in the budget categories of personal services, utilities, and inmate-driven expenses. Section 7, hereby appropriated from the State General Fund to the Department of Corrections a sum of $213,574 for the Gene Conservation Camp related to shortfalls in personal services and utilities. Section 8 is hereby appropriated from the State General Fund, the Department of Corrections, the sum of $3,896,945 for Ely State Prison, with an anticipated shortfall related to personal services, utilities, and inmate-driven expenses. Section 9, hereby appropriated from the State General Fund to the Department of Corrections in the sum of $53,139 to Carlin Conservation Camp, and an anticipated shortfall related to personal services, maintenance contracts, utilities, and inmate-driven expenses. Section 10, hereby appropriated from the State General Fund, the Department of Corrections, the sum of $3,217,122 for the Lovelock Correctional Center, the budget account, anticipated shortfalls related to personal services, inmate-driven expenses. Section 11, hereby appropriated from the State General Fund to the Department of Corrections a sum of $3,164,040 for the Florence McClure Women's Correctional Center budget account. Anticipated shortfalls related to personal services, utilities, and inmate-driven expenses. Section 12, hereby appropriated from the State General Fund to the Department of Corrections a sum of $15,780,715 to the High Desert State Prison budget account. Anticipated shortfalls relating to operations, personal services, utilities, and inmate-driven expenses. Section 13, hereby appropriated to the State General Fund from the State General Fund to the Department of Corrections the sum of $6,374,786 for prison medical, and with the anticipated shortfalls relating to personal services, utilities, and inmate-driven expenses. Section 14, hereby appropriated from the State General Fund to the Department of Corrections the sum of $2,363,002 for the Office of the Director for shortfalls related to personal services, operating in-state travel, information services, training, and inmate transportation. Section 15 of this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. And we are here for any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will take questions, and I will start with Senator Stone.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. It looks like you're requesting about $44 million today as a summation. I would imagine that a majority of that is overtime costs. Is that correct?
Katie DeSocio for the record. Yes, sir, that's
Okay.
correct.
And so what is your vacancy factor as you compare July 1st, 2024 with what we might project it to be July 2025? Are we making a dent in the vacancy factor? Because this is a lot of money of overtime, and certainly we don't want to be here a year from now looking at the same magnitude numbers.
Yeah, Katie DeSocio for the record. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't recall what it was in July 24, but I can tell you it's around 16% now. It has gone down drastically, yes.
Senator Nguyen.
Just to clarify, that drastic reduction I know has come, it hasn't come in the last year. It's come since we increased and gave state workers those raises during the 23 biennium. Is that correct? Or legislative session?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Obviously, I'm frustrated with this. I'm a little concerned on a couple of levels. One, Director Zarenda came in here multiple times indicating that there was still no plan to correct this to the point where during budget closings, we had to come up with a solution, at least temporarily, to add individuals where we thought we could make a dent in creating new positions at the post-academy training. So hopefully that will be helpful. I'm also concerned that we allocated money for this staffing study in 21 that went unused and reverted back. And then we again allocated it in 23, and we all waited until it doesn't even come out, I think, until June or July. Is that still correct?
It will be released before June 30th, yes.
Okay. But obviously that does us no good here during this legislative session. So I'm really frustrated with this entire agency's lack of prioritizing this. This is something that Director Zarenda indicated that he had let the GFO, and I realize that wasn't our current GFO, in the fall, that this was going to be a problem. And so I still have issues with this. And then even the correction is like problematic. As this bill was introduced in the assembly, it was initially for an appropriation of 6.6 million, to the point where you had to come back and ask for an additional like up to $44.7 million in shortfalls. I mean, this is money that has presumably already been paid out to all these employees, I think totaling 33.6 million in overtime. And it's even higher than that. Isn't that correct? Weren't you able to like move money around to like cover the actual overtime costs?
Tiffany Greenmeyer for the record, Director for the Governor's Finance Office. Yes, that is correct. It's probably going to end up being around $53 million, pretty close to it. And there has been an overtime reduction plan put in place, and we are seeing a huge difference every pay period. So it is coming down, but it'll be slightly, probably, I'm projecting pretty close to 53 million.
I guess my question is I know it wasn't included in the budget moving forward to account for any overtime, whether it be a reduction or this. Obviously, hopefully, what we proposed as a legislative body to create those additional positions in the post academy, hopefully will bring that down. But do you have an anticipated number of what we will be looking at covering when we're back here in 2027, what those overtime costs will look like?
Katie DeSocio for the record, Department of Corrections. Today, we don't have a projection for that. I think we'd have to phase in the new positions if they are finally approved in our LO1. We probably will, and I can't really speak for the director, but I will. We probably will continue with our overtime reduction plan that we have put in place, as Ms. Greenmeyer pointed out. Through the last 4 pay periods, we've gone down approximately 20% in our overtime, which is really good. On one hand, on the other hand, it also has it has potential risks that I'm sure the director would be more fluent to speak about. But we are looking at our funding and our accounts daily. Me being new to the department as well, we are implementing routine checkups with our different facilities, so they are aware of where they stand on a monthly basis. So we're going to have monthly meetings with them. So we are doing a lot of things to help mitigate future issues like this.
I guess this is probably, and thank you for your indulgence, Chair. I guess this is probably a question for your director, but I don't see the director here today. But and this is for you, I guess you all internally. I mean, the way I view this is there was absolutely no accountability with the decisions that are being made in the Department of Corrections and the lag time and the accountability of where you as the GFO were able to recognize that there was like a significant problem. When you are learning about the problem when it is at $53 million already, I think that's a huge failure in the system. So what have you done like internally to make sure that there is that accountability from the director of NDOC moving forward? Because it seems like there were multiple failures in the system to catch this, like, I'm going to call it more than an accounting error. Like an accounting error is like a couple $1,000s. Like this is, or even $1 million. This is $53 million in 1 year of the biennium, not like accounting for any other like last biennium or first year of the fiscal year. So what have you put in place internally to make sure that you are all correcting these so we don't end up in the same exact position moving forward?
Tiffany Greenmeyer for the record. So for my office, we will continue to watch NDOC closely. The analyst is very aware to bring this to my attention. Every pay period, we're reviewing and providing our own projections. So we will raise the flag immediately to the governor's office, so they are very well aware of what's going on. I'm hoping with them continuing with their overtime reduction plan, they have, a better handle on it. I also know that they're looking at 10-hour day shifts, 10-hour shifts instead of 12. My understanding that might be better, also reduce the overtime when they're at 10-hour shifts. So that's another thing that they'll be looking at.
And one final question. I know that we have sat here before, and there have been other agencies that have, I guess, for a lack of a better term, maybe overspent. But even those agencies reverted some of those dollars. There have been no reversions from NDOC's budget at all. Is that my correct understanding?
Kitty DeSocio, for the record, we have reverted our one-shots, but no, not out of the facility budgets, no.
And I guess my question is, if we were not to approve this, what does that mean for NDOC and our state moving forward?
Tiffany Greenmeyer for the record. So if we don't approve this today, that is definitely a problem because their budgets would be closing in a negative and they can't close in a negative. So one way or another, we have to figure out a way to support these budgets. The other option is to use salary adjustment dollars to get them out of the hole. I mean, that would be one option, but it'd be better if we do it this way.
Senator Neal.
So, I only have one question. So, for 25, 27, what do you expect to be the changes that you may experience? Because it seems like if this is just going to cover the current right now, then when the study comes out, what are you planning on doing that's really going to adjust? Because we won't be here. So are you going to expect that there's also going to be an increase for the 25, 27?
Kitty DeSocio, for the record. I mean, I don't think that we could possibly do that with contingency funds out of the session, but the intent is to receive the study, present the study to the IFC, and go through a phased approach to rolling out the total FTEs that would be necessary to run the facility more efficient without having the overtime. I know the director's feel on that or approach on that would be that we would be able to do that over a 3-year session, 3 years of sessions, so 3 bienniums. But the positions that were just gracefully given into our budget right now may actually short that plan because it would potentially only be two bienniums until we got to a place where we were staffed correctly and accordingly. I don't know if I really answered your question.
So, you did, but I guess, Madam Chair, just a quick follow-up. So for the audit that was issued by the executive branch that highlighted, so it said inadequate oversight of personnel, payroll practices, how did you make corrections to that audit findings? Did you make corrections to that audit finding?
Katie DeSocio, for the record, are you talking about the one that's currently happening right now? I don't believe we received.
There was an audit by the executive branch over NDOC.
Yeah, I don't think that audit is closed yet. Oh, I'm not aware of it, I'm sorry. I was more concentrated on the one that we're doing right now.
Okay, so.
But I will say that we've increased our internal procedures and timesheet approving levels to help with that. And we're also rolling out training out to the facilities so all supervisors understand the level of the timesheet approval and where they should be auditing at each one of those approval levels. I don't know if that answers your question either, ma'am.
Yeah, because it seems like there were a couple of audits, right? There was one in 2022. That's why we can just talk offline. I mean, I don't trust NDOC, but that's just me. I feel that there's always this, there's never a curing of the issue. And it continues. And then it cycles, right? So it's okay to ask for additional help, but then when it is continual, right, over and over and over again, and I'm probably just not even over, the initial budget hearings where it was like, asking for, you know, washer and dryer and then turn around that there was ARPA money expended for it, right? So there's always this exchange of, well, money was spent and then there's another request, right? So it's not just one time change, it's like several times, not just one biennium, but several bienniums. So,
Kitty DeSocio for the record. My feeling on that is that the department, I'm new to the Department of Corrections now, that's not an excuse, I'm just making a statement. The Department of Corrections has gone under a great deal of turnover in many levels of pivotal positions within the department itself. Like the administrative service officer has had 3 people in it in the last, I don't know, like 12 months. The deputy director has had 3 people in the last 2 years. I mean, we've gone through a lot of change. I'm hoping for cultural changes within support services to at least, so we have a stable environment and consistent and longevity in the staff, so they understand what their role and objective is for the overall goals and objectives of the department. I can't really, that's the only thing I can come up with.
Thank you. And I'll jump in here just really quick. I understand there has been some turnover, but this is, Director Zarenda's been there twice, so he's got some knowledge. I'm sorry he's not here today for us to ask a few questions, but I'm hoping that you'll have some answers. So the total on this bill is 44 million, but I heard you say it could be closer to, are you indicating that this 44 million, if it's approved, it could actually be more than that?
Tiffany Grademeyer for the record. No, this is what we're projecting that they need is the $44.7 million. They're going to be total need to get through, just cover all shortfalls through year end.
Okay, thank you. And then you said it was a problem closing in the negative, but it hasn't been a problem for how many years or how many times or how many whatever we're doing. It absolutely blows my mind, literally, that this was going on and nobody ever said. I mean, if you don't pay your car payment, eventually 6 months into it, you go, gosh, I haven't paid my car payment for 6 months. Or if you are not paying off your credit card and you're spending thousands of dollars every month, pretty soon you go, wow, I've got a $10,000 credit card I've got to spend. So it took us to get to 44 million, or actually more, before somebody said, oh, this is a problem. And that's what I'm struggling with, is that nobody, I understand the turnover, but at some point you're entrusted with a job. And every entity, I mean, I don't care if it's school districts, prisons, water district, I don't care who it is. People have turnover. People leave jobs, people come to jobs. That doesn't give the right or the permission for somebody to be inadequate at their job. If you're hired to do the job, then you should be adequate at the job and you should do your homework. And by the way, this job that I'm in right now is no different. When somebody comes in that's new, it's their job to read the bills. It's our job to make sure they understand the bills and what's going on. It's no different for our GFO. She came into that job. It was her job to do that. So that's why I guess I'm confused how we got to this amount of money and nobody ever raised a flag and said, wow, we better like time out here and not do so much overtime. And what I understand is some of the overtime costs, while I recognize we need to have safe prisons and we need to have people on task, some of those, when you talked about going to 10-hour shifts, once again, nobody ever thought about we have all this overtime and we should do something different. Maybe we shouldn't be mustering to the tune of 10 hours a day or whatever the heck it is. I kind of want to change Musser Street to Mustard Street. So with that being said, I need some more information about how this is going to be solved so that we're not 2 years from now coming back and you're going, well, it's not 44 million this time, it's only 24 million or whatever. So, like I said, I kind of wish that the director was here to answer some of these because he's done this before and he's in this position now, and I'm assuming will stay in this position. So what are the thoughts moving forward? How are we going to fix this? Because if it's not going to be fixed, we can't okay this. Because we can't just keep coming up with $44 million.
Tiffany Greenmeyer for the record. I can assure you that I will make sure that it is being monitored. I did, I came in January and I found out about this in February. I definitely raised the flag because of my experience. This should have been raised in the first quarter. I absolutely, totally agree. September come around and you have a $10 million, $15 million overtime bill. That flag should have been raised then. Totally agree. So I can assure you this is going to be watched very closely.
Okay, thank you. And I'll go to Senator Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to both of you for being here. It's obviously there's a level of frustration, and we are where we are in it, and I appreciate all the questions from my colleagues, as well as our little side discussions on this and being concerned. My question is just going back to the amendment. This began as a request for $6 million, and then what happened is like, oh snap, we need 44. What I don't understand what. You see what I mean? Because typically there are going to be amendments. Certainly we get that, but not that kind of growth. What was it that's? Oh, first we need $6 million. Oh shoot, that's not. What happened? How do we get there?
Tiffany Greenmeyer for the record. So my understanding when the governor's recommended budget was originally submitted, it was originally submitted with the $6.6 million supplemental. And then when I started diving in and reviewing everything and then was made aware of the supplemental of the overtime problem, that's when it increased. That's when I knew about it in February and raised it to the governor's office and said, uh-oh, we got a problem. So, I did recognize that there was a big problem, but that problem should have been recognized way before.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Chair, thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Neal.
I'm sorry, Chair, but I just can't let this go. So it's two questions. The first one is, I'd said several bienniums, but the first audit was in 2017, and it directly talked about overtime hours and the problems. Then it was in 21, then 22. So, not to, beat a dead horse, but if the same director is in play, and you're having the same conversation around overtime, when are we going in and then having a deeper dive into the management? That's the first question.
Tiffany Greenmeyer for the record. So currently right now we have an internal audit going on. That audit is going to be completed in a couple weeks. So once we get the results of that, then we will start looking at where are the issues. Are the issues in management? are the issue. You know, where are they? So we'll look at that and we'll work together and we will try to solve this problem.
Second question. So in the overtime chart, so you have one employee that had a base pay of 64,000. And then in overtime hours, he managed to rack up 3,125 overtime hours. And then his total paid overtime ended up being $149,000. That either, you know, because the director's not blind or crazy, right? So, and it's not all. So if folks are saying, I'm going to manipulate the system, it might right there be on the surface. And we want correction officers to be there, right? And we know there's been an issue in regards to pay, but that's a lot of money to make in overtime and then walk away and say this was needed. And then one of the other higher categories for a second employee, they made $161,000 in overtime pay. That's extra. And the red flag is out there waving, saying it's a problem for multiple reasons.
Tiffany Grademeyer for the record. So I did raise that question, and then had to review the collective bargaining agreement. What was going on is they have volunteers, people that do overtime. And if that volunteer doesn't get that opportunity of that overtime, they grievance. And then I also had to pay a grievance because they won because they didn't get their overtime, which I think there's a problem in that in itself, but per the collective bargaining, there was no other option. You have to let that volunteer go first. And that person can volunteer every week and be the first one to get the overtime. That's how my understanding, and that's what I was told.
No, I'm familiar with it because it happens in different places, but it's first to feast and then others. It's a hierarchy. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the questions.
Thank you very much. Additional questions? Senator Nguyen.
Just to put some perspective on the numbers and the example that Senator Neal elicited. Obviously, it's a lot of money in overtime if your base pay is $64,000. I guess this is a part of a larger systemic problem as well, that NDOC is not documenting genuine safety issues of having an employee. And just to put it in perspective, that number that Senator Neal talked about is 3,125 hours of overtime. A full-time employee working 40 hours a week, 52 hours a year, is only 2,080 hours. So that means this person is working an additional 78 hours a week. So they are working 78 on top of the 40 hours a week they're working. And given the tort fund balance that we have and the number of deaths in the NDOC, I can't imagine why there isn't any kind of documentation about having correction officers work, 78 plus 40, 128 hours a week, how that is not causing safety concerns, and that is not something that the division and the department would document and say, hey, this is why we are not agreeing with this, because this is a ridiculous number of hours for someone to work in a safe environment. I'm just appalled that we would try to use collective bargaining as an excuse when this is something that even under CBAs, if someone documented this appropriately, there's no way anyone would look at this and say that this is appropriate, that someone is working 128 hours a week. But it feels like there has been no accountability, there's no documentation of these abuses to be able to even have those kind of conversations. So I'm just frustrated with that aspect of it. Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead.
Tiffany Grademeyer for the record. Yes, I raised that same concern of safety and health out there in facilities, of someone working 7 days a week. Or the person that I was tracking working 3 pay periods, which is 6 weeks, and having 2 days off. I did raise that same concern. So it's out there. And that's why, if you have to pick that volunteer every single time, where does the safety and health come in factor, right? Where does it come into play? So there has to be some kind of rule there that, people need days off. But I don't work out there, so I can't control it myself.
Kitty DeSocio for the record. There are internal issues, I would say, like muster pay, for instance, is included in that overtime amount. So it's not really like they are working. So we do have room for improvement in how we record our timesheets and where those dollar values are accumulated, if you will. So it's weird, but
But even if they're mustering, they're at the building. So when do you drive home and sleep and come back? It doesn't matter what they're doing. They've got to eat, they've got to sleep, and then they've got to drive. And most of them probably don't live in a 5-minute area. So it's, and I know you keep saying there's room for improvement, and I know you're new to the job, but room for improvement, it's like, when were we going to figure out we needed room for improvement? Like $44 million ago. Senator Buck?
Thank you, Chair Dondero Loop. I was just wondering and maybe staff can answer this, but do you have to pick the most senior person? And so that's why they're racking up all of the overtime for that one person. But how would that be changed? How do we go about changing that? Can this body override collective bargaining when it comes to that? Is, I guess, question one.
Well, Tiffany Grademeyer for the record. In the collective bargaining agreement right now for corrections, it is written in the agreement for volunteer overtime. So right now, we can't override that.
So can this body override that at some point legislatively so that it isn't, because I know that most police departments do that, my husband's included, would go to first senior person, ask them. If they said yes, then you have to go with them.
And I'm going to let Mr. Thorley take that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. The way collective bargaining works at the state level for state employees, anything in the collective bargaining agreement that requires funding from the legislature to effectuate. So, for example, if there was something in a collective bargaining agreement regarding salary increases that required an appropriation from the legislature to carry out, if the legislature does not fund that, then it does not take effect. However, the non-economic benefits in collective bargaining agreements that don't require legislative appropriations to carry out, as long as those are approved by the Board of Examiners and included in the collective bargaining agreements, this body has no ability to override that.
And thank you for the question, Senator Buck. And I still would go back to, yes, I understand most senior person gets that nod to do that work if they would like. But when does a supervisor say, oh, you've worked 16-hour days, 7 days in a row. I know you want this shift, but we really think you need to have at least 24 hours to sleep and regroup and then come back. You know, when does the supervisor make that suggestion? Even if the person doesn't adhere to it, when does a supervisor become a supervisor?
But do they have the power, Chair, to do that? I don't
Well-
know. I mean, I'm legitimately asking if it's, the supervisor can recommend, but if collective bargaining is saying, no, too bad, I don't know.
I would be pretty sure safety would be an issue, but go ahead, please.
Kitty DeSocio for the record. I'm not 100% sure, but I will say that if we do violate an employee right, we end up with grievances, which
I totally appreciate. I totally understand, and I understand Senator Buck's question. I just am, in my mind, wondering, does anybody stop to say? It's not about whether they do it or not. It's not about whether they don't give them a shift. It's not about the collective bargaining. It's about safety, and it's about common sense. When does somebody stop and say, you know, I think, you know, you might want to take 24 hours off? They can make that suggestion. That's not part of that's being a supervisor. So, and especially if you're worried about your first and foremost, the person that is working that many hours, and second of all, the safety of your other employees. So, all right, any other questions or comments? All right, with that, if you'll step back, we'll go to those in support of Assembly Bill 581 here in Carson City. We'll go to Las Vegas, and we'll go to the phone lines, AVH, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of AB 581, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to provide support testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. It's now 50 times on your phone for your bill. If you would like it to be heard in this committee, please write, I will not have my phone on in the Finance Committee. All right, we will go to opposition here for Assembly Bill 581. Las Vegas, AVH, phone lines.
If you would like to testify in opposition to AB 581, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you very much, and we'll go to neutral here in Carson City, in Las Vegas, and on the phone lines, AVH, when you're ready.
If you would like to testify in the neutral position for AB 581, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Thank you very much. And any closing comments from either one of you? Okay, I can see the look on your face. All righty, thank you very much, and thank you for being here today. And we'll close the hearing on Assembly Bill 581, and we'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 156. And when you are ready, you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and esteemed colleagues of the Senate Finance Committee. I am Senator Edgar Flores, proudly representing Senate District 2. I think Dan was trying to get intro music for me, Madam Chair, so yeah, that was my walk-in music.
Well, he thinks, he might think that, but it's not the way it works around here.
He just didn't have the timing right, so he put it 5 different times, Madam Chair.
Got
That's
it.
what it was.
Got it. Thanks for being on his team, Senator.
I got his back, Madam Chair. I'm here to proudly present Senate Bill 156. In the interest of time, I will be very brief. And I wanted to just preface it by saying I've had the privilege of working along with young Republicans and young Democrats, specifically from UNLV, on this particular piece of legislation. I've asked them to please not do the 1,000 phone calls and emails. This is not a discussion on the policy. I think the students are following along. This is not the time for us to call in. We can do that should this be able to move out of the fiscal committee or conversation, finance conversation, then we can have the policy conversation in the assembly. So please do not do the phone calls today. But I did want to give them the credit because I am doing this bill on their behalf. Madam Chair, I also have Ms. Chief of Staff, Ms. Benitez Thompson from the Attorney General's office, who's joining us over the phone. Specifically, I worked alongside of her and the AG's office on this particular amendment, so they can call in and explain exactly how they can see that with this amendment, we can get rid of the fiscal note. So just for clarity, what the amendment does, it removes sections 3, 4, 5, 10, and 13 of the bill. Those sections originally created an entirely new office for the prevention of gun violence, complete with specialized personnel, grant programs, data collection mandates, and biennial reporting requirements. By striking those provisions, we eliminated the need for a new full position, operating budgets, grant awards, funds, and associated administrative costs. With those deletions, all the remaining sections of the bill are purely directive, authorizing the creation of the office within the existing Attorney General's office structure without adding staff or programming expenses. And with that, Madam Chair, if I may ask that we allow for, should it be the request of the committee that we allow for her to call in, or, Madam Chair, if you'd prefer, she could just call in during the support testimony portion of the presentation.
I do believe we received an email from her, and we have the amendment that you have put forth. So with that, I'll allow for questions here from the committee. So just so I'm clear, Senator, what the amendment does essentially is take out the additional personnel, for example, amongst other things, and the AG's office has made the determination that they can pull this into the office without additional resources.
Thank you for that question, Madam Chair. Senator Edgar Flores for the question, for the record. That's exactly what it is, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no questions, if you'd like to step back, we will listen to Ms. Benitez Thompson on the phone. With that, please call, we will go to support, and when here in Carson City, Las Vegas, and on the phone lines when you're ready, please.
Thank you. If you would like to testify in support of SB 156, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Senate Finance Committee. This is Teresa Benitez Thompson, Chief of Staff to Attorney General Ford, calling to confirm what Senator Edgar Flores just put on the record, which is that with the amendment as provided, our office will be able to conduct and absorb these activities and duties without the need of new staff. The reason for that is we do have a special counsel position that had hours obligated towards the duties of the Advisory Technology Committee. And in this session, that Technology Advisory Committee is being sunsetted. And so that takes hours off of one of our special counsel's plates, and we can obligate and turn around those hours towards these activities. So we want to thank Senator Flores for working with us on this and making this work for our office and for his and the students' needs.
Thank you very much for that information. That helps us a lot. I appreciate you waiting online to speak. Thank you. Anyone else on the line, ADH?
Thank you, Chair. There are no other callers wishing to provide support testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll go to opposition here in Carson City. Good morning. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Janine Hansen, and this morning I'm representing the Independent American Party as our state chairman. We are opposed to this bill, but we are particularly opposed to the funding mechanism for this. We understand that the Attorney General is going to absorb this. We don't really want any of our tax dollars going towards it, but we're particularly concerned about Section 11, which provides in the amendment, the new amendment that you just got, which provides for government and private agency and affiliated organizations to be able to fund this. And there's considerable concern by us about private organizations funding this, because we know that in 2016, Bloomberg funded $20 million for an anti-Second Amendment initiative in Nevada, and there are many other anti-Second Amendment organizations that would be willing to fund this, that could certainly set their agenda through this office, that would include the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence, the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence, Giffords Law Center, Moms Demand Action, many others that have shown they are willing to spend money against the Second Amendment. We're very concerned about that. And we know that the majority party has supported legislation which we consider to be anti-Second Amendment, and certainly the Attorney General. And so we're concerned about using this office essentially as an anti-Second Amendment propaganda office, that it will not be to prevent gun violence. Now, we are against gun violence, absolutely. We're very concerned about it. There's a great and simple answer. That was in the Federalist study published March 12th, 2025, where it says, in non-gun-free zones where civilians are legally able to carry guns, concealed carry permit holders stopped 51.5% of active shooters compared to 44.6% stopped by police. The Crime Prevention Research Center found in a deep dive into active shooters scenarios between 2014 and 2023. They found that permit holders, CCW, were better able to stop active shooters. So we encourage you to encourage CCWs to stop gun violence. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you very much. Any additional opposition here in Carson City, Las Vegas, and on the phone lines, AVH, when you're ready.
Thank you. If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 156, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Hi, Yolanda Canuck, Yolanda, last name Knaak. I just like to ditto what Janine Hansen said. We're in favor of CCWs being allowed to prevent gun violence, and we are opposed to this bill. And by the way, I'm representing myself, though, myself and my family. Thank you very much. Please vote no.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Bob Russo for the record. I strongly oppose SB 156. This bill is a solution looking for a problem. Besides concerns of outside influence and funding of this office, the so-called Office for the Prevention of Gun Violence would, I believe, be an anti-Second Amendment propaganda machine aimed at turning public opinion against law-abiding gun owners. As has been said before in other testimonies on various gun control bills introduced during this legislative session, the data shows that criminals could care less about gun control laws, and that dangerous individuals are more likely to choose, attack, and kill people in gun-free zones, fully knowing that they are less likely to receive any immediate opposition to their actions. According to a study reported in July 2023 by Carl Moody at the Department of Economics at the College of William and Mary, it concluded that mass public shooting deaths are lower in places that allow the carrying of concealed firearms. Perhaps encouraging people to train in the safe use of firearms and acquire concealed carry permits will serve to prevent gun violence, as the data shows. Sadly, I believe that the Office for the Prevention of Gun Violence will be nothing more than an extension of the anti-gun bias we see in the media today, thanks to groups such as Everytown and individuals such as Michael Bloomberg. They have a history of putting on workshops on the topic of firearms that they claim are balanced, and to investigate the details and discover that they are indeed quite biased. Excuse me. They also have a history of stacking the deck in their favor when it comes to radio and television debates. Again, I believe that this would indeed be the case with the Office for the Prevention of Gun Violence. It would be a hindrance to obtaining accurate and unbiased information on the topic of firearms and prevent people from discerning the truth about them. And for these reasons, I ask you to please oppose SB 156. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Perrine, CYNTHIA PERINE. I do appreciate the amendments to this bill, but I am concerned, as a previous caller expressed it, about the private organizations' funding expenses for this office, which could result in undue influence from external sources. I do feel we need more voice from local Nevada stakeholders. Otherwise, I am concerned about bias seeping into this conversation. I oppose SB 156. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, this is Randy Thompson, RANDITHOMPSON, on behalf of the Nevada Firearms Coalition. We are opposed to SB 156. Violence is violence. Target one type of violence is to ignore that we need to focus on preventing all kinds of violence. 12 states have created gun violence prevention offices, and only one state, California, has seen any kind of reduction in gun violence, most likely due to their very tight gun laws. National data indicates that gun violence is actually declining, and in reality, in 2022, there were 416 traffic fatalities in Nevada. Between 2018 and 2022, we averaged 160 homicides by guns. So more people are dying by car violence than gun violence. While we appreciate the amendment, we are still concerned about the ramifications of this bill, and we stand in opposition to SB 156. Thank you for your time, and happy Memorial Day.
Thank you very much. And ABH, any other callers on the line?
Good morning. My name is Lynn Chapman, LYNNCHAPMAN, and I'm the State Vice President of Nevada Families for Freedom. A quote from Lysander Spooner, quote, "To ban guns because criminals use them is to tell the law-abiding that their rights and liberties depend not on their own conduct, but on the conduct of the guilty and the lawless," unquote. Dr. John Lott said, quote, no non-shooting mass murderers don't get the attention that mass murderers with guns obtain, unquote. Creating an office just for gun violence doesn't seem the best way to spend the money. Mass killings have been happening for years and not always with guns. We've got to worry about how Nevada is spending money. Violence comes in all shapes and sizes for many different reasons, and public awareness campaigns are fine, but make them to fit all the different ways of violent crimes and actions against others happen. Guns don't cause violence, people do. So let's worry about spending money on something that is not going to benefit everybody or take care of the different ways that people are hurting others. please vote no on SB 156. Thank you.
Thank you very much. AVH, any other callers?
There are no further callers to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we'll go to neutral here in Carson City, in Las Vegas, and on the phone lines, AVH, when you are ready.
Thank you. If you would like to provide neutral testimony for SB 156, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to provide neutral testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. Any closing remarks, Senator? Okay, with that, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 156. And we are going to recess at this time. And we will be back. We just don't know exactly the hour. So with that, we are in recess.